Now, I do understand that the reason we could see all of this was because Pomni devised a plan to do something. It's not really explained what was going on, and in my opinion, it didn't really progress the story anywhere, nor do the scenes of Pomni walking around in Jax's mind palace, so I'd be fine just cutting this entire sequence. Instead, I believe we should have gotten a short debrief about the circus breaking down after Caine got deleted. The fight everyone had, and then we follow Jax as he walks off. Maybe he goes to his room, or maybe he just lies down in the fetal position somewhere, and then we go into his backstory. Just have it happen in his mind. Then, when the abstraction graphics start building up on the screen, the ones used for the scene transitions, the audience will start to think, oh fuck, something's really wrong. Once we hit the conclusion of his story, we cut to the scene of Pomni and Ragatha looking down at the abstracted Jax. I feel this is much better and a far more impactful way to deliver his death. Then maybe wrap up the episode with the gang leading abstracted Jax into the tent, and there, you have your Jax episode. The main thing we lose with changing the sequence of Jax's events is the redemption with Pomni, if you can even call it that. I feel the redemption falls flat on its face. Yeah, he's had an awful life, but he was still an ass to the other members of the cast. If you wanted a proper redemption for Jax, then he shouldn't have died. We should see actionable ways that he changes his behavior towards himself and to others for the better, because this is actually a redemption. The only thing we got from the redemption arc was pity, as the audience feel bad for him and can understand why he acts the way he does. This isn't redemption though, since nothing changes in regards to his interpersonal relationships. So again, I think if they just cut this moment between Jax and Pomni, not much would be lost. The audience would still view Jax in the way Gooseworks wants us to, whether Pomni's there or not. But with that said, I do understand the benefit of having an in-universe character being there so the audience can assume that Jax's story will be told to the other inhabitants of the circus, even if this is off-screen. Maybe it's a cop-out, but if they found some way to reverse Jax's abstraction, fully committing to the end of Evangelion reference, and he returns with a new lease on life, then you could also get a proper Jax redemption arc, but you know, maybe I'm just a sucker for happy endings. And then, in episode 10, we can entirely focus on wrapping up the primary story. What is the circus? Can they get out? You get the idea. In this way, the finale would feel like a finale, instead of feeling like the Jax show featuring the Amazing Digital Circus finale. While I have no proof for this, I do think the decision to turn the finale into an hour-long feature film was primarily driven by money, large red arrow pointing to how much profit Markiplier's Iron Lung made at the box office, and the artistic product has suffered for this. While we're on the topic of Jax, I may as well bring up my issues with his character resolution, notably that he didn't get any character resolution. As I've said previously, nothing changes about Jax aside from the fact that we feel bad for him. He doesn't change his ways, he doesn't overcome the fear of being open with people, he doesn't get closer with the rest of the cast, he just abstracts. To me, this is a wholly unsatisfying conclusion to his character. I'm not the type of person to be against killing off your main cast. In fact, I actually really like it when characters die. I think death is one of, if not the best driving forces that a narrative can have. It keeps the story grounded with actual stakes. If I'm watching certain shows and I realize nobody's gonna die, there's a high chance I'll lose interest since all drama and tension has been removed. No matter how bad things get, the main characters will survive because they're the main characters. That's just boring to me. However, in the case of episode 9, I don't see the benefit to the story that came with killing off Jax. I don't think his death really added that much to the narrative, nor the development of the other characters. By the time Jax dies, it's not even like he's good friends with the others. His death just kind of happens and everyone moves on with their day. I'm not the type to enjoy that a character redeems themselves with one big moment in the climax where they sacrifice themselves for the cast. Again, I don't think this is actually redemption, but even something like that would have been more satisfying for Jax's demise. Death should always be used to progress the story or the characters forwards. More JJK spoilers, but Nanami's death was instrumental in Yuji Itadori's development. Riko Amanai's death was the spark that began Suguru Gato's downfall. Without Mai Zenin's death, Maki Zenin would have never become the powerhouse we know her as today. Even someone like Save Me the Syrup, for I am the waffled one Kashimo, the bum farmer, even his death helped show how far above the Jujutsu world Ryomen Sukuna and Satoru Gojo were in terms of raw power and skill. All of these deaths do something. They have a tangible and noticeable mark on either the story or the characters. Jax's death just doesn't fulfill this criteria. Admittedly, we do have a heart-to-heart moment between Pomni and Ragatha following his death, but this could have easily happened without Jax abstracting. None of this was new information, and the heart-to-heart was not contingent on Jax. This isn't all to say that I think Jax should have survived. He was the foil to pretty much every other member of the circus and even the messaging of the entire show. For a conclusion, he either needed to go or dramatically change. I just don't think the way in which his death was handled was a benefit to the story. Though, with that said, there is a pretty strong counter-argument for my position. I know I did just say that I think the episode should be split in two. This isn't exactly what I believe though. I think the episode should have actually been 3 episodes instead of the feature film, which is the length of 2 episodes. Why, you may ask? Well, because the pacing of this film was dreadful. About 30 minutes into the new content of the film, one of my friends I was with leaned in and whispered to me, "All they do is cry in this thing." Admittedly, he went in only knowing about The Amazing Digital Circus a couple of hours before we went to see it, but I do think he has a point. A lot of the film was spent on these heartfelt character moments. Pomni and Ragatha's talk after Jax abstracts, Pomni and King's heart-to-heart, and Gangle and Zooble's conversation stand out to me as prime examples of this. This is not a fault of the film. I do believe that all of these interactions were a vital necessity for the plot and the development of these characters. I have no problem with their inclusion. However, since the episode was working on such a tight runtime, including all of these down moments meant that a lot of much needed build-up, setup, and transitionary scenes were excluded from the final product. There were so many scenes that utterly dragged for no real reason. For instance, there was a full 5-minute sequence of Caine lying down then walking upstairs. Were the visuals cool? Yeah, definitely. It's just whether or not you should dedicate 8% of the episode's runtime to Caine walking up the stairs. Although there was a 2001 Space Odyssey reference, and I love that film, so, maybe it should have been kept in. This wasn't the only scene I noted as an egregious example of poor pacing. After the Pomni and Ragatha post-Jax abstraction talk, there is, and I'm not joking, a full 30 seconds of the two just walking away from each other. This is One Piece JoJo's levels pacing. On rewatch, knowing how long the scene actually lasts, it's hilarious because you notice how many cuts and camera angle changes there are to try and hide the wasted time. Maybe this is a bit nitpicky, or maybe my attention span is cooked, but if this video cuts to a 30-second black screen or a 30-second sponsor, you're lying to me if you say you wouldn't click off or skip through it. More fluffing I think the finale added came from, you guessed it, the Jax Mind Palace sequence. In the beginning, we start by watching Pomni go through a bunch of different doors. Behind each door is a simulation of how Jax would have reacted if each of the characters abstracted. I guess it's interesting information to have. It's not really necessary though. I don't understand why so much time was spent dedicated to hypothetical scenarios in the series finale. Following the issues with pacing and my recommendation that things should have been given more time to breathe, I should probably cover the surprising amount of things that just happened with little to no explanation. As I've talked about extensively, the Jax flashback stuff. This all happens because Pomni enters Jax's mind palace and can poke around at his memories. Is it explained how this happens? No. Is it ever brought up again? No. Or given any inkling that it's within the realm of possibility? Again, no.